Hi everyone. So recently MuseScore.com released a mode called Practice Mode on their app, but it is paid for, and I thought surely we can do a lot of practicing good ourselves just by getting to know MuseScore better. So today we're going to look at how we can use MuseScore in an effective way to improve our practicing. And so here I have a short piece called Minuet by John Eccles, and this is for cello and piano, and we'll just look through it and see what we can do. The first thing, of course, is that I can play through the piece and let the student hear what it sounds like. If I don't have a good recording, MuseScore can create a fairly nice sound. So that's already a good start. The student can perhaps get an idea of how this piece sounds, the tempo that we're looking at, but then of course we want to start breaking things down. So the first thing I want to do, in fact, is to remove the piano. The student... Right, my student doesn't need to see the piano part, they just need to see the cello part. Let's just make sure that we have the correct formatting. That makes things better. Let's also just remove those things that we don't need to see. And we can zoom in and just fill the screen with this. And in fact, while we're here, let's set this up because I can remove these as well. Let's remove palettes, remove the instruments, and remove the properties. And I've got an even bigger screen. I can also go to view full screen, and that gets rid of my bottom bar, and now I've got lots of space for my music, especially if we're dealing with a computer that's perhaps a bit further away than we would like. It always helps to make the music nice and clear. And here's a tip. We're going to go into workspaces and create a new workspace that has all of these things, and let's call this practicing. And this way, if I want to go back into editing, I'll just go back to default. And it brings back all those other things that I'm used to having. But when I want to practice, it's a very quick method to just do that, and I'm back into my mode without all the sidebars and things. So, pro tip for you. All right, so at the moment, now, I'm not saying that this sound is perfect, but at least it is something to follow along with, which is quite nice. The other thing that is quite handy is that I can bring in a metronome, just by clicking in this playback bar and the metronome. And the other great thing is once I go to the mixer, and I can change the volume of that metronome as we're going. Perhaps you don't like that particular metronome sound, and I wouldn't blame you. I'm not a fan of it either. I enjoy going to Muse Sounds, Muse, and in the percussion section, they do have a metronome. That's a nice generic sound. It's a very modern sound though. You know, we're used to that kind of sound in studios, which is fine. You can use that. But if you don't like that, you can also go for the wood blocks. And that perhaps is a nicer sound for you. Of course, if this was for the piano, I could easily just add both of these. Let's open those. And I can have a piano part here that just the pianist can practice, or I've got the cello part that just the cellist can practice, or it's often just easier to stay within this one main score and just add in instruments as we want to see them. The other really powerful things with this playback menu is that we have a looping playback. So I can really just select a section, perhaps these two bars, you know, my student is struggling with, and I can select to loop them. And then if I press spacebar, and I can just loop it over and over and over again, which can be great for just really drilling those sections that need work. Now, of course, the teachers among you may be saying, But you shouldn't be practicing at full speed, and you're absolutely right. We want to slow down this. So I could change this tempo marking and just keep changing it. But you can imagine if I had a more advanced score that has tempo changes, I would be having to change all of those tempo markings, and I don't want to be doing that. So what we do instead is we pull this bar out, and it becomes its own undocked bar now. And you'll see here in tempo, we're at 100% tempo, and I can reduce that by percentage now. And now if we play there, obviously MuseScore still has a problem with its looping playback, that it doesn't start on the beat. I think it's still busy looking ahead, and so when it gets looped back, it hasn't remembered to look ahead backwards, if you get my meaning. So hopefully that's a bug that'll get fixed. I don't think it's too big of a deal. It should be able to be fixed fairly easily. But that looping is certainly a useful feature, and so is the ability to change our tempos. And we can just gradually assist the students to slowly build up the tempo until they're at the desired tempo without having to worry about changing our metronome marking and any of the other things. So that's really useful. An interesting thing with this metronome, I've found at certain tempos, in compound times, it subdivides the beat. But as I increase the tempo, so far I've only seen it do this in compound times. I would love to know if it could do that in simple time, if there was a way that we could sort of just get it to subdivide the beat as we wanted to. I think that could be a really cool feature for teachers and even students, especially, again, looking at those more advanced scores where we really need to know what's going on in the subdivisions. Could be a really useful feature. And of course, the fact that it can follow any time signature and tempo changes makes it so much better than just a simple metronome app that you might have on your phone. So now once the student has gotten comfortable with this, we might like to bring the piano back in. So I'll go back to my mixer, and the piano is automatically muted because we have hidden it from this score. Remember, we can just go back to our View Instruments panel and re-enable it there. But we don't necessarily want the student to be looking at the piano part, we just want to hear it. And so I'll unmute the piano. But now I can still see the cello part, only see the cello part, but still hear the piano. And then once they're comfortable with that, I would say, well, let's take out the cello part and just have the piano part. And that could be a really good way to slowly build up their confidence with, sort of playing with the track, hearing it, and then adding the piano, and then taking away the cello. Could be really useful. Now, the one big problem that we have so far, and this was in MuseScore 3, so if you're still using MuseScore 3, you're probably good. But in MuseScore 4, there is no count-in feature, and that is a real problem for practicing in education. What we'd like to do is say, I want to start here, or I want to start in the middle here, but I want to count in for a bar. And you can imagine for instrumentalists like cellos and trombones and basically any instrument that I play, there's no ways that you can press play and start playing immediately. I think most instrumentalists would agree this is a fairly big feature in terms of practicing. And so we hope they will bring that back. I know that they had to take it away because it was conflicting with various things in the system. In their development website, it does say that it's not planned for the next couple of releases, which is a pity. But again, we are very grateful for everything that the MuseScore people are doing. And so if there are any developers who would like to implement this feature, I think they should jump in and see what they can do. Maybe I'll be tempted to do that as well. But certainly the count-in would be a super useful feature. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. If you have any other tips and tricks for practicing while you've got MuseScore open, please let me know, and stick around for part 2, where we'll be looking at how we can use the MuseScore app to do this for our students. Bye for now.